Hello everyone, I am Dr. Santosh Kumar, orthopedic and joint replacement surgeon based in Kolkata, India. So in my endeavor of this video series, I have been clearing various doubts and answering to various questions that you have been sending to me on my email ID santdr@gmail.com, or you can WhatsApp me at 9831 911 584. I have been getting questions around the world and I will be trying to answer your queries. I have shortlisted few questions which I will be trying to answer today. So let's start the questions that I have been getting. I'm just reading the questions to save time. I'm not reading the name of the person from where they have sent, etc. So I have sorted out the questions that I have got in my email IDs in last 3 or 4 months. Hip replacement surgery is a surgery for advanced arthritis of hip. Well, hip arthritis, as you know, is very painful. To start with, it presents as antalgic gait. What it means is that person has pain while walking, painful limp, and there is antalgic gait. There is shortening of the affected side and there is difficulty in sitting in chair, sitting on commode, climbing stairs. So initially to start with, the pain is only on activity, but as the arthritis progresses, the pain is at rest also. That means at sleeping, at bedtime also pain is there, and that disturbs the sleep. So hip arthritis is very painful and very disturbing, and it grossly affects our activities of daily living and quality of life. And hence, for hip arthritis advanced stage, we need to do hip replacement. Well, before that, there are few surgeries, but in my opinion, hip replacement is the most predictable surgery. See, once we undergo a surgery, if I were to take a decision for surgery of my family member, I would take a decision only for a surgery which has got predictable results, 100% results. Hip replacement, hip joint replacement is a very predictable surgery, and it is done for any kind of end arthritis or advanced arthritis of hip. That arthritis can be any of those arthritis. It can be a primary osteoarthritis, which is age-related osteoarthritis. It can be secondary osteoarthritis, wherein there is a definite cause for this osteoarthritis, or it can be other sites of arthritis quite common in Eastern India, like ankylosing spondylitis, avascular necrosis. So I am not going into details of ankylosing spondylitis or avascular necrosis, all those things, but whatever may be the type of arthritis, the treatment for advanced arthritis is hip replacement. So this is the condition when we ought to think of hip replacement. Well, as we have seen in our earlier videos, and since we have shown it so many times, I am not going to get into the details of the components and all. Hip replacement surgery replaces the ball and the socket of the hip joint. In any hip arthritis, the ball and socket is worn out, it is either fused, it is worn out, it is painful, it is shortened, there is decreased range of movement. So hip replacement replaces the ball and the socket, it replaces the ball and the socket, and this is how it works. Once surgery is decided, before the surgery we do certain pre-operative tests. To establish one's fitness for surgery. Generally, patients undergoing hip replacement are pretty young, so fitness is not that much an issue. So establish one's fitness for surgery. During the surgery, we do minimally invasive, computer assisted, navigated, robotic, all those surgery types of surgeries are done. And after the surgery, from the very next day, we'll make you walk. The concept of any joint replacement, whether it be knee or hip, the concept is that the joint replacement implant, the construct should be perfectly stable and strong right at the time of surgery. We don't have to wait for it to become strong. So it is at its full strength right on the operation theater table itself. So that's why we can make the person walk with full weight bearing the very next day of surgery. What it means is that if somebody undergoes hip replacement today, he or she should be able to walk with some kind of support, whether it be walker or whether it be a elbow crutch, but he or she should be able to walk from the very next day of surgery. And we have to do certain rehabilitation. The more the person walks, generally faster is the recovery, better is the outcome. So rehabilitation in terms of muscle building exercises, especially abductor muscle strength exercises, have to be done. But well, this is a generalization. This may not be applicable in all cases. There are certain cases, certain situations, there are certain specific situations in hip replacement wherein we have to put a lot of bone graft, we have to reconstruct the cup. Sometimes the cup is deficient, cup is worn out, and we have to reconstruct the cup. We have to put bone graft there. We have to wait for some biological union to occur. Sometimes there is a fracture. We have to wait for some union to occur. So in certain cases, it may not be possible to make the person walk full weight bearing from the very next day. In those cases, we may make the person walk with partial non-weight bearing or partial weight bearing using a walker. So these are exceptions, and this is what we expect during the surgery, after the surgery. Well, during the surgery generally takes around 30 to 45 minutes, but in certain complicated cases, and of course it depends on surgeon to surgeon also. It may vary, the time of surgery may vary, so that's not an issue, I think. And the day after surgery, we should be able to make you walk. Well, of course, the surgeries are done with minimally invasive method. When we talk of minimally invasive method, it's not entirely only the length of the skin cutting. We have to preserve the muscle structure. We have to go neatly into the joint. There should not be struggling during the surgery to keep it minimally invasive. So minimally invasive is good, but it is a relative thing. It is not that minimally invasive has to be done at any cost. It's not like that, because it's all the results of a joint replacement, hip replacement are entirely dependent on the precision of the surgery. It's full mechanics, it's full physics that is involved. The component placement, sizing is of utmost and paramount importance. The skin incision may vary a bit, but that's highly secondary. Just to keep the skin incision, a surgeon should not make things messy inside, struggle too much inside. That will compromise the result of the surgery. So most important is to preserve the anatomical structures. The most important is to do a neat dissection inside, complete visualization by the surgeon, because the visualization of the surgeon is also very important for component placement. All these things are very important. Minimally invasive is good, but it's oversold. It's something which is oversold. It is something which is overmarketed. On one hand, if you are going for hip replacement, it's good that you study a lot on the internet. It's very good. You know about most of the things, but still you must understand one thing, that it's the precision that is the most important, and hence you should always demand minimally invasive you should always suggest minimally invasive for the from the surgeon, but you should not go and fight with the surgeon that either you do minimally invasive or you don't do. It's not like that. So there are factors which are beyond superficial. Precision and the result of surgery is not skin deep. It's not, just as beauty is not skin deep, the precision and skill of the surgery, the precision and the result of the surgery is not skin deep. So it's not that 2 inches cutting is important or 3 inches cutting is bad. It's not like that. And moreover, we have good skin stitching systems to make minimal or no scars, and we have stitchless systems. So all those things are also there. In our previous videos, we have detailed discussion about the types of hip implants. If you are seeing this video for the first time and you have not seen the previous videos, you may go back and refer to my previous videos, wherein I have explained the types of hip implants: cemented, non-cemented, large head, ceramic, metal, everything I have explained. So if you have not seen that, you can go back and see what are the types of hip implants. But hip implants basically are of two types: cemented, non-cemented, and hybrid system. The concept of non-cemented implants is that it's press fit and bone ingrows on that, while in cemented implants it's put with bone cement. So normally the cup of the component, we try to make it uncemented as far as possible, non-cemented as far as possible, because in my opinion non-cemented cups are doing better than cemented cups. Now as far as the stem is concerned, it depends on the bone stock of the person. If a person is young and strong, we do non-cemented so that it is press fit and bone ingrows on that. And if a person is old and the bone stock is not good enough, press fit cannot be achieved, then we must use cement. So it's a decision of the surgeon on the table whether to use cement or to go for uncemented. And We have to consider all those things, and of course, both ways it's very good. It's not that cemented is bad and non-cemented is only good. It's not like that. We have to make the construct perfect. We have to consider the mechanics, and we have to consider the biological factors. So the wisdom and the decision of the surgeon is probably the best, and it's better to leave it to him. Now, well, we may consider very young people wherein we may expect revision after some time. In those cases, we prefer to use uncemented, but cemented is also good, because if it comes to revision, then it's easier to take out a cemented stem than to take out an uncemented stem. So both cemented and uncemented stems are good. As far as cup is concerned, I prefer personally uncemented, because uncemented cups are more successful than cemented cups. But then, of course, it is the situation on the table which dictates and which makes the surgeon decide what implant to use. It's not something which is in black and white and only this is good and this is bad. It's not like that. It's a situation on the table which needs to be considered before taking the final decision. Along with that, we have considered large head, we have considered dual mobility cups, all those things are there. Presently, large to moderately large heads are used, 32 mm heads are used. So that's also like something which needs to be considered by the surgeon, because the more you increase the size of the head, more is the wear out of the implant. So on one hand, if you increase the size of the head, we get better movement, we may get better movement, but it's not one-sided game. Once we increase the size of the head, the wear out of the plastic, the polyethylene also increases. So we have to strike a moderation, we have to strike a balance between both those factors, and probably 32 mm head size or 36 mm head size, 32 mm head size is good, and also 28 mm head size is also good. And most important thing, as I told you, is the precision of the surgery. Well, this is an interesting question, but it entirely depends on the expertise of the surgeon. If somebody is expert and well versed and prefers to do posterior approach, that surgeon will always prefer to do posterior approach. And if a surgeon is well versed with anterior approach or anterolateral approach to be more precise, then the surgeon will prefer to do an anterolateral approach. It is something which should not be interfered with the choice of the surgeon, because it is the expertise of the surgeon. Whichever approach the surgeon is used to, the surgeon will be using that approach in a better way. But there are certain factors, for example, to be considered. For example, there is flexion deformity. Most of the advanced hip arthritis have flexion deformity. That means they have contracture of the anterior capsule. In that case, I prefer to use anterolateral approach, because that helps me to get rid of the anterior contracture. And in many hip arthritis, the hip is rotated, externally rotated like that, so it makes posterior approach difficult. So I prefer to use anterolateral approach, and most of the times I personally prefer to do anterolateral approach. But well, again, as I told you, it's a decision of the surgeon in which he or she is comfortable, in which he or she is trained, and the one in which he or she is used to. So that is what is more important. And well, it is a complete decision of the surgeon, as I told you. I understand your apprehension. Well, during the surgery, there will be absolutely no pain, because the spinal anesthesia or general anesthesia, whatever it may be. So as long as anesthesia is there, it will be 100% painless. There will be no pain, absolutely no pain. And after the surgery, we try our level best to make things painless. We use something called nerve block, we use local anesthetic, and we use multimodal pain control modalities like transdermal patches, patient control analgesia, and most importantly, a well done hip replacement in a neat manner, in a minimally invasive manner, with good dissection, should not be very painful. Overall, a good, well done surgery, a well done performed surgery with good precision should not be very painful. It should not be painful as such. Well, after a hip replacement surgery, you will be on your foot from the very next day of surgery. You will be starting to walk from the very next day of surgery. First 10 to 15 days, we may need a walker. From the second day of surgery, you will be able to sit on chair, commode. And by the time you go home after 3 to 4 days, you will be able to climb stairs, sit on chair, commode, use washroom on your own. and walk inside in your house with a walker or two pair of elbow crutches. And full recovery muscle strength development is something which we have to work for. We have to do exercises for muscle training, muscle rehabilitation, muscle building, muscle strengthening, and this takes around 3 to 4 weeks. Minimally invasive well done hip replacement surgery, a person should be able to join office by a month or so. So that's the recovery. Within a month a person should recover. Well, total stay is around 3 to 4 days. I prefer to admit the person the day before surgery, in the afternoon or evening before surgery. We do the surgery in the morning and we make the person walk from the very next day, and after 2 to 3 days of surgery I prefer to discharge. Normally blood is not needed if one hip is done at a time. Sometimes we do both hips in single sitting. If we do both hips in single sitting, blood mostly will be needed, but one hip at a time, generally blood is not needed. From the very next day we mobilize the patient, and within 2 to 3 days after surgery we discharge the patient to home. And we presently have wash proof dressing material so that patient can bathe after 2 to 3 days. Otherwise we have to remove the stitches. We have stitchless surgeries, and after 10 days of discharge patient generally comes back to me for evaluation, for wound inspection, and if at all stitches are used, stitch removal. Well, after hip replacement, not much of physical therapy is needed. If you start walking and do abductor strengthening exercises, which we will teach you, we will give you videos, we will give you photographs, that should generally be enough. Normally after hip replacement, a specialist therapy is not needed. Yes, after knee replacement, physical therapy is of immense importance. So after hip replacement, it's not that important, and you can manage things on your own. It is important. It's not that it's not important, but you can manage things on your own after hip replacement. Well, full-time care is generally not needed, because you will be on your toes and you will be walking on your foot from the very next day surgery, and you will be able to go to washroom, sit on chair, come out, take bath for yourself, and all these things you will be able to do by the time of discharge, that is within 2 to 3 days. So I don't think full-time care will be needed, but part-time care is still, if you are staying alone, then part-time care is always good. Will I need a hospital bed at home? No, absolutely no. You will not at all need a hospital bed. You can sleep on your bed comfortably and very comfortably. When can I lie on the operative side? You can lie on the operative side almost immediately. It is very safe to lie on the operative side. I have seen patients who are having a lot of apprehension to lie on the operative side. They keeping confused and they don't lie on the operative side. But it's very safe to lie on the operative side. You can lie on the operative side from the very next day. You will be able to walk from the very next day of surgery using a walker or or a pair of elbow crutches. And I think within 2 to 3 weeks you should be able to leave this walker or elbow crutches, and within a month you should be able to walk without any aid, without any walking aid, that is without any crutches or walker, and within a month you should be able to join your office. Even if you are not going to office, within a month you should be able to resume your morning walk, evening walk, etc. Well, climbing stairs should not be an issue after hip replacement surgery, and after a well done hip replacement surgery you should be able to climb stairs within a couple of days. Well, these are the generalizations, but there are always certain exceptions wherein the implant may not be completely stable at the time of surgery, especially when there are bone defects. We have to use bone graft, and we have to wait for the graft consolidation, or if there is associated fracture before the surgery. If there is associated fracture with the joint replacement surgery, then we have to wait for the fracture consolidation. So all those factors also sometimes come into play. Whatever I am talking is of generalizations, but there are always exceptions to generalization, and sometimes we may need to understand all those things. So that's something important which I need to tell, and I have told. I think after a month you should be able to drive car. We have a wash proof or swim proof dressing material. If you are not scared, we can keep the stitch line open also without any dressing, and you can shower after couple of days after surgery itself. I think normal household activities you should be able to resume after a month, and you should be go back to office after a month. Sports, well, non-contact sports only are allowed, like recreational badminton, recreational tennis. Football should be avoided. Contact sports like football, hockey, and all those things should be avoided. Recreational basketball can be done. As far as professional sports is concerned, it would be slightly difficult. Recreational sports is yes, no problem. You can resume within 1 to 2 months. Gardening and all, household work, gardening and all, you can resume within 1 to 1.5 months. That should be fair enough time for you to resume. After hip replacement is mainly abductor strengthening exercises, which we will show you. We will give pictures, we will give you videos, and that you should be able to do on your own. Well, after hip replacement, majority of the people are able to do exercises on their own. Unlike in knee replacement, where very rigorous exercise protocol is very important. Well, as I told you, you should be able to do freely recreational non-contact sports, for example, recreational badminton, recreational tennis, recreational other games. But football should be avoided. And of course, you can do swimming, running, jogging, cycling, all those things you should be able to do. After hip replacement, there is no lifting limit. You can lift whatever weight you want. You can lift whatever weight you want as long as your body is permitting, your back is permitting it. Well, I think this can be done after 1 to 1.5 months of surgery. Normal, all activities can be like all other activities. It can be resumed after 1 to 1.5 months of surgery. Probably yes, metal detectors will beep when you are going to the airport. We give a certificate, and nowadays it's so common, so they know. We give a travel certificate, we give a card. You can keep your certificate and discharge certificate as a PDF in your mobile. You can show them, and of course we can give you a card. Well, in previous videos we have discussed in details what are the implants made of. There is a stem, there is a head, and there is a cup, and there is a bearing surface. So 4 different components are there. The stem, which goes inside the femur head, femur bone, which anchors the implant, one which goes inside the femur bone and anchors the implant, that is normally made up of titanium, and it is porous coated or hydroxyapatite coated. And the bearing surface is made up of either cobalt chromium, because cobalt chromium can be most highly polished, or it is ceramic, because ceramic can also be most highly polished. And the bearing surface normally is ultra high molecular weight polyethylene, highly cross-linked ultra high molecular weight polyethylene, also known as marathon poly. So this is the normal bearing surface. Other bearing surface were used earlier, like metal was used as a bearing surface, but mostly it's discarded now. There are other bearing surfaces also, like ceramic on ceramic, but we prefer ceramic on poly, hard on semi-hard bearing surface. Well, the cup is again made up of either titanium or cobalt chromium, and it is porous coated or hydroxyapatite coated. The concept is press fit, and so that bone ingrows on that. So these are what the materials the implant are made of. This is something very important, especially for the younger people. Well, the longevity of the implant has been increased because of better precision, enhanced understanding, and nowadays the implants are press fit, in which bone ingrows, porous coated or calcium hydroxyapatite coated, in which bone ingrows. So that bone ingrowth, the fixation more durable than the cement probably, but still of course there are exceptions and there are other factors, and most important thing is the precision, the technique, and the wisdom of the surgeon. So normally the well doing joint replacement, non-cemented ones should be able to last for around 40 to 45 years or more. One thing we must understand is that a person who needs joint replacement at a younger age should also, he or she should go at a younger age also if needed, because there is a revision. We can always revise it after 40, 45 years or 50 years. We can always revise it. So a person should be pain-free and walking within a painless way, and should be comfortable in the productive years of life. So that longevity of the implant is important, but we should not suffer because of that, because even after 40 years, if it is needed, it can always be redone. Well, we should avoid extreme of activities like sitting on ground, squatting. we should avoid running, skipping, jumping, impact activities which produce impact at the implant, because activities which produce impact of the implant may wear out the implant. We should avoid sitting on ground and squatting. Other than that, there is nothing much that we can do, and it is the precision of surgery which is very important. Well, joint replacement can wear out quickly if you do impact activities like running, jumping, dancing. It may wear out quickly, and if you do extreme activities like sitting on ground and squatting, it may wear out fast. Well, there are a multitude of complications, but experienced surgeon, in the hands of experienced surgeon, it's very predictable and complications are nearly zero. Although theoretically there are complications but as I told you, in the hands of an experienced surgeon, the results are very predictable. Well, average cost over here is in Indian currency, Indian rupees, the average cost of a non-cemented large head ceramic on poly implant, average cost is around 2 lakhs. But of course, it depends on the type of the mediclaim. Every insurance, every type of the insurance, many insurances have their own packages. There are government and non-government insurances, and sometimes if somebody who doesn't have insurance and who needs to undergo surgery, we come all out to help, and we do it at a lower cost also. And then, well, the type of the implant is important, and then sometimes the type of hospital also, the cost depends on that also, because in very big hospitals the cost may be slightly higher than in a smaller hospitals. But then again, we have to consider everything like the infrastructure and the backup of and medical backup and all, everything we have to consider before choosing the hospital. So I have done nearly, including hip and knee, I have done more than 10,000 joint replacements in last 15 years, and we are very confident that we will offer you the best and the safest and the most predictable results. I operate daily, so you can come any day, and once the pre-operative tests are done, we can always plan the surgery at your convenience. To conclude, I would like to say that over here, right here in Kolkata, we are offering you world-class hip replacement surgery at the most affordable price. So wherever you are, you do visit us, do come to Kolkata. Our city is an international medical hub, so you are most welcome to come to us for any joint replacement surgery. If you have any queries, please mail us at santdr@gmail.com or WhatsApp us at 9831 911 584. Thank you.